In light of coming out of COVID, what is the number one thing that you've learned over the last 12 months?
The government's corrupt. That is the one thing I've learned. It is so freaking corrupt.
This isn't a competition, but I think you just won the number one thing. I don't think we're going to get a better statement than that on the show. So thank you. Perfect. All right, that is an awesome way to kick this off. Hey, welcome everybody. I am Neal Bauer, and I'm here with the lovely Kim and Jodi from ePayments, a fresh approach to payments. And we are here today with a very special guest. Actually, Kim and Jodi, you want to tell us a little bit about yourselves?
I am Kim Coley, and I am the co-founder of ePayments. And we are, as you mentioned, we're a fresh approach, and we cover everything from wallets, cryptocurrencies, international, multinational companies, and we provide payment solutions, which has been fantastic in light of this last year in COVID.
I am Jodi Durst. I'm the co-founder for ePayments, and I'm just really excited to be bringing this podcast to all of you and have Bob on the show today.
Yes, so everybody, please meet Bob Walker. Bob is a dear friend. He's a successful sports marketing executive that's career spans over 30 years. He is the most persistent and driven person that I know. And Bob is someone that's so special that he's taken his passion for wine and turned it into a vineyard. Yes, I'm plugging you, Bob. I love this logo. On his own property, along with his wife, Heather. And it's called Silent Bob Vineyards. And as you will soon realize, Bob is anything but silent. So with that being said, Bob, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're working on right now?
Sure. First of all, Kim and Jodi, thanks for having me on the podcast today. Very exciting. I'm Bob Walker. I'm founder and president of Connexions Sports Entertainment, which is a athlete management and motorsports consulting agency. We're based here in Carlsbad, California. And I've been in the sports marketing world for 30 plus years now. My career has spanned working on the senior PGA Tour and the Olympics, most specifically the 96 games. And I'm supposed to be in Tokyo right now. I'm supposed to be there with our Sandbeach Volleyball player, Tri Bourne, who played this morning for Team USA. And they did make it to the pool round. But what our main bread and butter of the agency and what we currently do is representation of athletes in the world of motorsports and action sports. And Tri, who's our Sandbeach Volleyball player, people are like, why do you have a Sandbeach Volleyball player? Because it's really a lifestyle sport. It kind of falls into, the surf culture and that. So we have a small group of athletes that we represent, and then we help manage their social media and develop their social content. So that's the Reader's Digest version for me, and happy to answer any questions you guys have for me today.
With that being said, I have two number one things I'd like to ask you. The first one is, in light of coming out of COVID, what is the number one thing that you've learned over the last 12 months, especially in working with live events and managing all these different athletes with different agendas?
The government's corrupt. That is the one thing I've learned.
Yes, I completely understand that. And with that being said, what did you learn about your business and how you needed to manage that and the athletes? Because I'm sure you were a therapist in a sense as well.
Yeah, it is interesting because the pandemic has affected all of us in so many different ways, professionally and personally, friends, family, etc. When this went down, I thought about, well, the good news is we have a lot of long-term contracts in place. And then I started thinking about, crap, companies are calling force majeure and, acts of God and backing out of contracts and not paying people. And I'm like, this could be really, really catastrophic if everyone puckers up and does that. And we started going down the road and talking to our insurance company, like, hey, loss of business, are we insured on this? And of course the insurance companies run to the hills and cry, oh no, that's not force majeure. But the brands are saying, yeah, it is force majeure. And the insurance are like, no, it's not. We're not paying you. And you're like, great, this is wonderful. But things kind of turned around in the first couple months. It was those first 2 months that were really scary. Gratefully the PPP money came along and gave people that lifeline or security blanket, at least, to see how things were going to play out. And we adjusted, we had to pivot. And what was great by having athletes is we learned that social media was going to be very, very important. Social media kind of just took over for properties and events. And if you had athletes that had a strong social media presence, we were able to turn that engine on and really amplify it more for brands. So it's like, well, hey, you're not at your NASCAR races, you're not at Supercross, you're not at the X Games. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. We're not there, but our athletes have millions and millions of followers. So let's take advantage of their channels and start developing really exclusive content for each of our partners and push that out there to continue to drive those impressions and that value in those endorsements. And it worked really well, and brands really started gravitating towards it. And this year, a lot of our new deals that we've done they're not about branding or having a sticker, on your jersey or on your dirt bike or a logo on the car. It's been more about what we can deliver to each brand through that athlete, through social media posts and content. I mean, it's every single day we're doing something of developing content for a brand that sponsors one of our athletes. And it was not like that 18 months ago. It was here and there, kind of splattered. But now that's been an incredible lifeline. And people that didn't pivot and do that have been kind of left by the wayside. They're chasing the car down the road now, where we're driving the car. And our athletes have really capitalized on that and generated great value for themselves in the renewal process. They kind of separated themselves from the competition that way. So that was one of the really big learning things business-wise that we took away from it. We were able to pivot.
I love that, Bob. Actually, that goes right into my question. You have such an impressive history and career and all the changes that you've made, and you use the word pivot. Which we do daily. Kim and I always tease that we've pivoted so many times in just the 6 years we've been in business. And you have done that so well throughout your career and so impressively. What's the one thing you would share with our audience that gave you the vision to know when to pivot?
Call me a riverboat gambler. I will roll the dice. If I've got to bet on myself, I will bet on myself all day long. Kim can attest to that. She's worked around me for a long time in the early days, and no just didn't work for me. Back to her comment about being the most persistent person she may know. It's pretty true. I learned early on, I may not be the smartest person, but God gave me the ability to communicate with people, and I will wear you out until you give me a yes or no. I just want an answer. Like just tell me it's no, and I'll leave you alone. But if it's not, I'm going to keep bothering you. So that the persistence has really paid off in that sense. And it's just energy. You don't have to go to school to be persistent. I'm like, that's easy for me. Like, most people just are afraid to pick up the phone and make the cold call, especially today's younger people coming up. They will not pick up the phone and call anyone. And I'm like dealing with this yesterday with someone. They're like, well, they're not responding to text. And I'm like, call them.
Yeah. What a concept. Call them.
They're hiding behind emails and text messages. And I got
social.
I got two kids that just recently graduated college, and their generation, it's like everybody breaks up on text message. Where's the communication? It's so cold and heartless.
Yeah. And it's true. And, when we think of some of the greatest things that have happened to us have been because we've had that human connection and we've met with people face to face. Some of these virtual conferences, not to knock them, but we're like, oh, people have a fake suitcase. They're going in not during booth hours and things like that because they don't want to talk to people and have to communicate. Whereas when we were traveling and going out and seeing people at shows and things, some of the greatest things that have happened to us personally and in our business have all been that human connection.
It's funny you say that, Kim, because I had this conversation with my CFO this morning. I came back from 2 days of travel in Charlotte and had a ton of meetings. And I was like, man, I go, you just can't put the value, what the number is on meeting someone face to face. I'm like, these Zoom calls are fine, but I'm like, it's not even close to seeing someone face to face and having that human interaction. It's so much more personable. It's such a relationship builder. And in my world, that's how business gets done. We get stuff done with people face to face. It's at the events, it's at the tracks, it's whatever. It's not, or conferences. Not having the ability to go to any conferences last year, it was, I could really feel like, man, I'm not getting the new business I used to get, but we maintained the business and grew the existing business, but wasn't able to get out and track people down because everyone just scattered like cockroaches. Like the light went on, everyone just scattered to their bedrooms behind their laptops and quit communicating with all of us unless their company's making them do Zoom calls. And you just can't find these people. They're not at the track, they're not at events, they're not at conferences. So that's been really, really tough. And I'm excited about this fall because there's some great conferences in our industries that are coming back. Knock on wood.
Yes.
You guys are focusing on the negative too much. You guys are talking about people breaking up on text messages. What about all of the marriage proposals through text?
I haven't heard of any.
Probably not. That brings me to a good question. So you're in California. Things are potentially opening up. My number one thing, it has to deal with, you work with athletes, you work with pretty much celebrities. What's the number one thing you would recommend to somebody trying to get in touch with a celebrity or an athlete? What's the number one thing you do to get them excited about it?
From my perspective, like what I do to get our athletes excited about maybe participating in these events, or for someone that wants to use an athlete to make an appearance at an event? Because
I would be both sides of it. I think that would be great.
Yeah, there's two things that excite athletes that I've learned over 30 years: money and free stuff. That's it. From a charitable standpoint, I've run a lot of charity events. Kim and I worked on a lot of celebrity golf tournaments and pro-ams for Major League Baseball and the NFL. I mean, that's what really led to me becoming a sports agent, starting a sports management agency from a golf agency, was doing these celebrity golf tournaments with all these players from football, baseball, basketball, et cetera, and meeting their agents. But, from a charity standpoint, it's the give back that's important. It's usually the player that's the honorary chairman or whoever's charitable event that it is. And, they'll play in 5 or 6 buddies events over the year. Then those buddies got to come play in their event, and then they help each other out. And they get that. And a lot of them are like, oh, wow, that's that golf course. I've always wanted to play that golf course. Oh, it's a free boondoggle to Phoenix, or it's a free boondoggle to San Diego. There's got to be something in it for them. I mean, these guys are making a grip of money already, right? So why do they have to do anything? Like NASCAR, for example, you got all these drivers making crazy money. They don't even want to do a social media post for a sponsor. Why do I need to do that? I make enough money. Well, okay, let's take the money away from you and see what you want to start doing. It's the money has become so big. Are they worth it? Absolutely. But it also, I think it jades the athletes and celebrities, whether it's a musician, whether it's an actor, whether it's a sports participant. I don't care if it's from a low level sport that doesn't get much media attention to the NFL. I mean, I think it's all the same at the end of the day. And money makes the world go around, and it gets the attention of the athletes, or there's got to be something special or something in it for them. And then in order to get them there, I tell people, you got to respect their management and utilize their management. Some of you are like, oh, I'll just go to the athlete directly. I'll just do this. It's like, you can do that, but they're going to shine you eventually. The manager's there for a reason, to vet things out and to make sure things happen. It's like the athlete's not on the call. The athlete's not at the appearance. He's not there on time. It's like, that's why we travel with them everywhere, to make sure they get there on time, make them look good. If there's any drama, we interject ourselves in. make sure there's security for the autograph sign. All those little things add up because it can be catastrophic if one little thing falls out of place. So, and the athlete knows the manager's there, the manager's involved, they've vetted it out and they got their back for them. So that's the other side of things. People so many times want to eliminate the manager, feel like they don't need the manager, but the manager plays a very important role in making everything come together.
Bob, that is more on the nose. That's like 3 bullseyes in a row. Again, I cannot get over how valuable this has been for just me right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool. Can I ask you one more thing? I just, out of curiosity, just because of who you are, since you've worked with so many different, people and athletes and celebrities, and it always boils down to a few common threads of who the person is that makes them successful. In your experience, what are those things? What do you see over and over with the folks that you work with?
I've had this saying for a long, long time, working with athletes in so many different sports and being around them. And I think, when you get to the professional level, they're all great athletes, first of all, in order to just get to the professional level. Even to get to a D1 sport anymore, you have to be a phenomenal athlete. And then to make it from a D1 sport, then to be at the pinnacle, one, just be a starter or racing cup, or whether it's Supercross on one of the top teams, call it neck up. This here separates greatness because they're all in great condition. They all have great, physical characteristics. They've earned that right to be there. But what makes Tom Brady win 7 Super Bowls and become so many MVPs versus, another quarterback in the NFL? Why was Joe Montana able to do it? I mean, right. Montana and Brady were not freaks of nature athletically. Ricky Carmichael in motocross was not a freak of nature athletically. I believe they use this to separate themselves. And they're great communicators. They're great leaders. They get more out of the people around them. They're humble. They're funny. That's the it factor. It's neck up. And someone needs to do a study on this neck up thing. What mentally makes these athletes so much greater than the other athletes when they have all the same physical characteristics?
Yes. That's a great name for a podcast, Neck Up. What's happening? Neck up, people. And Bob, so with all of this, what is the number one thing that you know now that you wish you had known 30 years ago?
Outside looking in, people talk about how glorifying my job is in athlete management and representation, going around the world and getting to do all these really cool things. It's a 25/8 job. There is not a minute off. There is no vacation, even though you go on vacation. You are always available. The amount of phone calls I have between 9 and 11 o'clock at night, every night, and even on Sundays. I mean, working with talent is not a 9-to-5 job, because the talent does their sport, their training, their appearances, whatever. And then at night they get home, and about 8 o'clock, they start thinking about what they got to talk to their manager about. And so it's very stressful. It's very consuming. I thought it'd be a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun, but it takes a toll on your own personal health. And that's the one thing that's, I think I've cut years off my life because of the stress and the travel and everything we got to do with this job, because you're managing people's livelihoods. You're managing their livelihood, but their family, their kids, their parents, et cetera, are relying on that money. And so when things go wrong, it's always your fault, whether it's yours or not. You're the scapegoat. And so that becomes frustrating, and it wears on you. It's depressing over time, but you start to realize, like, you just got to have leather. Your skin's got to be leather. You got to let it pull off your back. It's not personal, but there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of anxiety that you can't imagine that comes along with the job. And I didn't realize that. I've intentionally pushed my children away from this industry. I did not want them to go through what I've had to go through, and they've got to witness it and see it. We've had a great living, very successful company, great time. We got great athletes and clients, but I don't want them to go through what I've had to go through, just the strain and stress and the pressure.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I'd say. Way greater than I ever could have imagined, versus, when we were just selling sponsorships and playing golf. I mean, that was easy.
Yes.
Back to that, like, could I get a job on the PGA Tour selling sponsorship where all I need to do is play golf and entertain people and sell my golf? That's not stressful.
Right.
There's anxiety with that.
No, but doesn't that remind you of, like, our investor, when we even first sat down before we even went into business, said to us, hey, everybody talks about overnight success, which all of us as entrepreneurs know there is absolutely no such thing. And nobody talks about the in-between and the 20-hour days and all of that, you know?
Yeah.
Jodi, I don't know if that was where
that
you were
is exactly
going.
where I was going to go. I was going to say that so corresponds to how we feel too as building a business. You know, no one talks about how flipping hard it is, you know, and how you have to be on all the time and you never get a break. Like it's your baby. And, you know, people want to just look at it like, oh, wow, you made it. You're so lucky. And you're like, oh, wow. Luck had nothing to do with it, really. I promise.
Yeah, I heard a stat the last couple of days that said 75% of small businesses fail or are not profitable. I'm like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Really? It's that big of a percentage? I was like, pretty blessed. I've done this with 3 agencies now. So, but it's that persistence and not taking no for an answer and just out hustling and out working your competition. That's one thing I wish the younger generation could learn is hustle. You guys got to hustle. Nothing is owed to you. In this younger generation, everybody thinks they should come out of college, get a $100,000 salary when a college degree is nothing more than a glorified flipping high school degree these days. Something degree in college is mind numbing to me. I'm like, they're coming out with graduate degrees and like, can't even freaking build a spreadsheet. I'm like, how do you get through high school and 4 years of college as a business degree and not be adequate for general Excel spreadsheet and PowerPoint building? Like,
yeah,
how
the skills.
No wonder everything's going crazy in this country. I mean, it goes back. Yeah, I'm like, I don't even want to hire undergrads anymore because I feel like you got to have an MBA, and an MBA is what an undergrad degree was like when we were coming out of college. You're just more prepared. There's a huge difference when you meet someone with an MBA versus an undergrad degree in business. Huge difference.
Yeah.
I mean, the MBA can build a spreadsheet. But the other thing is, I think you brought it up before, it's like you have to be leather skinned. You have to be made of Teflon because we had 2 big initiatives. One was with Joe Montana and a NASCAR type event where we got Joe Montana 16 sponsored on a vehicle, and it was responsible for the most spectacular crash. So it made it around the track for like 3 minutes before the car burst into flames. And the driver, it was a career-ending injury.
Oh.
Yeah, that was one of the things, but we continued forward. So these are big events where you think, I've made it. This is the echelon. This is the top. This is going to make us, this is going to be the next big thing for us. And then it goes away. And it's, again, you have to be resilient and have the ability to get beyond that and not let it define you.
Yeah, it's not easy. This resiliency stuff isn't being taught in universities. The internships aren't what the internships once used to be. I feel it's our job to be giving back, you know, as this older generation. Mm-hmm. I love to give back. I want, one of my goals now for this last, you know, quarter of my career, I want to teach sports marketing classes at the university level. I feel there's a real need for people like ourselves to give back and be working at these universities for a class here or there. And helping change these kids. I mean, these professors that are teaching these classes don't have nowhere near the real world experience that we do in our respective fields. And I think we need to be giving back and doing that sort of stuff at a college level before this thing gets any worse than it already is. Because these kids are so unprepared coming into the workplace, so unprepared. Yeah. It's frustrating for me as a small business owner. And I've loved working with interns, and I wouldn't be where I was today if it wasn't for some people taking a flyer on me and putting me under their wing and opening some doors for me. And I always felt like someone did that for me. I want to do it for others and that give back. And now I feel like as I watch what's unfolding in this country, I'm like, I want to go teach. I want to like a couple of classes at the master's level in sports management and sports marketing. I mean, I can talk about the event management side for the Olympics too. athlete management representation, this whole social media thing that we're doing with Hailie. I mean, the doors were opening and changing. I'm like, someone needs to be teaching this to the kids, because I don't feel like it's going down right now at the university level.
Right.
I love that.
Well, and you know, it's funny because, and Neal, you spoke at Yale, right? Some of those young people, but you know, I had a friend recently, a couple friends, they're always saying to me when they think I'm a, you know, successful business owner that, oh, well, would you talk to my son or daughter? And I was like, well, if they reach out to me, if they're hungry, because I just had a friend of mine's son the other day, he reached out to me, he sent the text message, he asked when it would be convenient, and he's hungry. And I was like, wow. And I was so blown away, because I feel like you don't see that these days. And the role of teacher, even with my own children, I'm noticing that now, while I still have them in the house, that time's ending. That's the most important role, because I can't send them out to the world. Because if you just know these things, these small things like the communication, the persistence, being hungry, that you'll land on your feet every time.
Yeah.
But I love that you said that, because I think it's like an obligation of ours in this generation too, is to give back. You know, when you have had success, even us coming from a female ran business in a very male dominated industry, it is our obligation almost to give back to the younger generation of women in particular, to pull them up and bring them alongside us.
Yes. Thank you, Bob, for joining us. As usual, it is always enlightening and dear to my heart. You and your family are very dear to my heart and have had a big influence on where I am today. So thank you for that.
Well, hey, Kim, it's been 21, it's for 25 years to the date almost that we were sitting in a bar in Buckhead at 1:10 in the morning when I was looking at the TV and the bomb went off at our venue.
Oh,
remember?
Yeah.
25 year anniversary of the bomb for our venue.
And Centennial, but Neal's like, what? Yeah, speaking of the Olympics, we were at the Olympics in Atlanta, and remember when Centennial Park was bombed?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I was the manager of that venue, and Kim was working for me. And I had 4 other people that had worked with us in golf, you know, back on the PGA tour, that I brought in to help. And my wife said, just one night, just give us one night during the games that we can all go out as a group and have fun, because we were all, I built a schedule that I had someone I had, you know, 110% confidence in, that they would be on site while the rest of us were off. So 1 or 2 of us were always 24/7 on the clock there. She's like, just give us one night that we can all go out, one night. And so we worked on this Friday night to go out in Buckhead, the 6 of us, and celebrate and have some fun. And I'll never forget, I went to the bar to get drinks. It was like 1:10 in the morning. And I'm looking at the TV screen and I'm like, are you kidding me? And before we went out, I always had to carry a pager and a radio and a phone. So there was always communication with me as the manager of the venue. My wife begged me not to bring the phone or the radio. She's never lived this down. Never lived this down, because she nagged on me not to do it. I didn't do it so we could have this night out together. And I'm looking at the TV, watching the bomb go off and all this pandemonium. I'm like, I can't believe this just happened and nobody can get in touch with me. I can't.
Wow.
But we all would have been there. Like, because we had the schedule where some people were working through the night, some people were then coming home to sleep and going back.
The crew that we did a phenomenal job. Absolutely, they nailed it, and taking care of the injured people and all that. But yeah, that's a moment in time that I'll never forget, and it's literally Friday of Olympics.
Yes.
I'd have to do some math, but we're pretty much 25 years to the day of the bomb going off at Centennial Park in Atlanta, and here we are doing this great podcast together.
Well, on that note, Bob, it has been a fantastic pleasure meeting you. Like I could spend another hour easily just picking your brain about certain things. Kim, really appreciate you bringing Bob on board. I think there might be a second thing, or maybe we just start a college class work called 2 things or whatever. But bottom line,
from the neck up.
From the neck up.
Pivot and neck up.
From the neck up.